I thought I was about to surprise my husband with the most romantic Valentine's Day of our lives. Hidden inside my purse were 2 tickets to Paris, a handwritten love letter, and the news that I was finally ready to start the family we'd talked about for years. I walked into his company's headquarters expecting a smile. Instead, I walked into applause. My husband was standing beneath a wall of red roses, holding a diamond ring. But it wasn't meant for me. Before I could even process what I was seeing, he dropped to one knee and proposed to his CEO while the entire office celebrated around them. Valentine's Day had always been our favorite holiday. While other couples fought over expensive gifts or crowded restaurants, my husband Ethan and I had our own tradition. We spent the day together, no phones, no work, just us. This year, I wanted to make it unforgettable. For weeks, I'd been planning the perfect surprise. Hidden inside my purse were 2 first-class tickets to Paris for a week-long vacation I'd secretly booked months earlier. In my hands was a bouquet of red roses, and tucked inside the flowers was a handwritten letter telling him how grateful I was for the 10 years we'd built together. He had no idea any of it was coming. Since Ethan had recently been promoted to director of operations, he'd been working longer hours than ever. He kept apologizing for being busy, promising we'd make up for it after Valentine's Day. I believed him. I trusted him completely. When I arrived at the company's headquarters just before lunch, the receptionist smiled warmly. "He's upstairs," she said. "Everyone's gathered in the executive conference hall." I assumed they were celebrating another successful quarter. I thanked her and walked toward the elevators, smiling to myself as I imagined the look on Ethan's face. The moment the elevator doors opened, I heard applause. Laughter echoed through the hallway. Curious, I followed the sound until I reached the open conference room. Then time stopped. My husband was on one knee. A diamond ring sparkled beneath the lights. And standing in front of him wasn't me. It was the company's CEO. The room erupted in cheers. I stood frozen in the doorway, clutching roses that suddenly felt heavier than my entire world. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't storm into the conference room and demand an explanation. Instead, I turned around before anyone noticed me and walked back to the elevator. Every step felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart instead of my own. The doors closed, and only then did I let myself breathe. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone. The first thing I did was cancel our Paris trip. 2 first-class tickets disappeared with a single tap. The vacation I'd dreamed about for months no longer had a reason to exist. My next call was to our bank. "I need to freeze every joint account immediately," I told the representative. After verifying my identity, the accounts were locked within minutes. Then I called my attorney and asked for the earliest appointment possible. As I sat in the parking lot, my phone buzzed for the first time. Ethan calling. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Seconds later, it rang again. And again. I ignored every call. Something inside me kept whispering that what I'd seen couldn't be the whole story. Ethan wasn't just wearing an engagement ring for someone else. There had to be a reason everyone in that building acted as if this was completely normal. When I got home, I unlocked the fireproof cabinet in my home office and pulled out a folder my late father had told me never to throw away. Inside were the original ownership documents for the company his family had founded decades earlier. As I flipped through the pages, my heartbeat slowed. Then I found the number. 83%. I wasn't just the CEO's wife. I was the majority owner of the company they had just celebrated inside. And suddenly, every missed call started making perfect sense. I spent the next several hours reading every document my father had left behind. The company wasn't just another investment. It had started with my grandfather more than 40 years earlier before my father expanded it into a national business. When he retired, he transferred his controlling shares into a family trust with one condition: I would remain the majority shareholder, even if I chose not to work there full-time. My attorney carefully organized every document into a timeline, making sure every claim was supported by evidence instead of emotion. Then she closed the final folder and looked directly at me. "The quarterly board meeting is tomorrow morning." She paused just long enough for the silence to settle. I think it's time they remembered exactly who owns this company. The next morning, I walked into the company's headquarters wearing the same navy blue suit I used for board meetings years ago. No flowers. No tears. Just a leather folder tucked beneath my arm. Inside the executive boardroom, Ethan and the CEO stood confidently at the front, presenting their vision for the company's future. Neither of them noticed me until one of the board members looked toward the door. The room fell silent. "Evelyn," the chairman said, clearly surprised. I smiled politely. "I hope I'm not interrupting." The CEO forced an uneasy smile, while Ethan looked as if he'd seen a ghost. Without raising my voice, I handed the chairman a folder containing the shareholder records, trust documents, and certified ownership certificates. He reviewed the papers carefully before looking around the table. These documents confirm that Mrs. Carter remains the controlling shareholder with 83% voting power. The atmosphere changed instantly. No applause. No celebration. Only silence. At my request, the board voted to launch an independent investigation into recent executive decisions and, temporarily, suspend any leadership changes until the review was complete. The motion passed unanimously. Ethan finally stood. "Please, let me explain." For the first time since Valentine's Day, I looked directly into his eyes. "You had every chance to tell me the truth," I said quietly. Then I turned around and walked out. Behind me, the boardroom doors closed. This time, the applause was gone. The investigation lasted 6 weeks. When it ended, the board announced that several executive decisions had violated company policy. The CEO resigned before the final report was released, and Ethan quietly left the company not long afterward. Our divorce was settled respectfully, with no public drama, only the quiet ending of a life I once believed would last forever. A few months later, I finally used those Paris tickets. This time, I traveled alone. Standing beside the Seine at sunset, I realized something unexpected. I hadn't lost my future that Valentine's Day. I had simply stopped living someone else's dream and finally started living my own.